Have you ever planned a party gone wrong? Well, in John chapter 2, Jesus is invited to a wedding and they run out of wine. And I imagine the planners are freaking out. They don't know what they're going to tell the master of the banquet. The master, according to the text, doesn't know of the issue himself. Presumably, the master of the banquet is some kind of organizer for the feast and preparations and would work with the families setting up the wedding to get everything ready. And if you didn't have enough wine, it'd be embarrassing for the family. People would know they didn't prepare very well for this. It's like not having enough ice cream for your ice cream social, except way worse, obviously. So Mary hears about this and doesn't ask Jesus to do something directly, but with a knowing faith, simply tells Jesus the issue. She knows Jesus and believes that he can do something to help. She's known him growing up at this point and knows he's always been helpful. Jesus always seems to just know what to do. And so she just tells him in verse 3, they have no wine. Jesus knows the request that underlies the statement and responds in verse 4 with, "Woman, what does your concern have to do with me? My hour has not yet come." In that context, by the way, it was perfectly acceptable to address a woman as woman, although today you might get slapped, so don't do that today. Mary, however, upon hearing this, is still of the opinion that Jesus can help somehow. And still, she thinks that he will find a solution to this impossible situation. And so she tells the servants to do whatever Jesus says. Then in verses 7 and 8, it continues, Jesus said to them, "Fill the water pots with water." And they filled them up to the brim. And he said to them, "Draw some out now and take it to the master of the feast." And they took it. You'll notice that it does not say that he waved his hand over them or anything to make it clear that the miracle had been successfully performed. It doesn't even say at what time the water became wine. The only time the text actually clarifies when the water is indeed wine is when the master of the banquet tastes it. So perhaps Jesus made it all immediately wine in the back room where the pitchers were. That's possible. But I think that the servants drew the water and didn't know for sure if it was going to be wine by the time it got to the master. They would have filled the jars with water before. They heard another call by the master, "Bring us more wine." And they would have filled it up. They would have filled their pitchers with water, following what Jesus told them, even though it didn't make any sense at all, and they had to go and deliver it by faith. Imagine being one of those servants, walking out of the back room. Internally, you're freaking out, but with a smile plastered on your face for the guests, making your way to the master of the banquet with all eyes on you. People begin cheering as they see you, that there's going to be more wine. But with every step you take, the more anxious you feel, as you know what's in the pitcher, and it's just water. And then you approach the master of the banquet, who thanks you and raises their cup, and you take your pitcher and with a deep breath, pour it into their glass, and out comes wine. At which point you let out the biggest sigh of your life. In the grand scheme of things, you could say that this miracle is not the biggest deal. Jesus isn't healing a paralytic here. He's not cleansing a leper. He's not making the deaf speak and the blind see, or preaching even the gospel of salvation. He's turning water into wine because a family or a wine caterer had made a mistake in how much wine they needed. It's actually their own fault that they're in this mess. And yet Jesus still had a solution to their problem. He wanted to help them, even though he didn't have to, nor was he directly involved. But upon the petition from his mother, actually his mother just telling him the issue, he started working. Upon request, he got involved. And I think the same is true for us. Jesus wanted to help all sorts of people with all sorts of problems they might have, big and small. And he hears your prayers today just as well as he heard Mary's words back then. So today, with whatever you're going through, whether out of your control or like at the wedding, completely your own fault, whether it's a life or death situation, or like in this story, just to save yourself from an occasion of embarrassment, whatever it might be, get Jesus involved in all your affairs. Cast your burden on the Lord, for he cares for you.